5 physical symptoms that are caused by anxiety that are very bizarre. Now, if you're struggling with anxiety, you know that anxiety creates very bizarre symptoms. Symptoms where you're like, wait, is this anxiety or is this some malignant issue? And as I've helped people around the world, I've heard every symptom you can think of. Literally every symptom you can think of, I've heard of it. And what I want to talk about are 5 of the most bizarre symptoms, and I'll really show you how anxiety creates these symptoms. So let's get it started. So the first symptom is vision changes and auditory changes, so tinnitus. Now these symptoms are so weird, right? Think about it. Anxiety is just something in your head, right? Or at least that's what we've been taught. Anxiety is just nervousness. It's about being anxious about something. And you think anxiety is in the head, but in fact, when it comes to sensory organs, it creates really bizarre changes. And so one of the things is vision changes. And so you may be thinking, wait, how does anxiety create vision changes? How does it create tinnitus? Why is this happening? Well, in order to understand that, you really have to understand what we call the fight or flight response. Now, this is an innate mechanism everybody has. Our nervous system is really designed, if you think about it fundamentally, to protect us from different threats. And so one of the things that happens is that when you're experiencing anxiety is that sense organs become very heightened. And so what that means is that you will get vision changes and auditory changes. Now, because we're human, we're actually very visual creatures, more than most. We can see colors, we can see different discrepancies very well. And so what happens is that if you have this fight or flight response, if you have maybe, let's say, a threat coming out to you, well, your eyes are gonna do some visual changes just to make sure that it's able to see the predator. So it's actually pretty amazing if you think about it, how sophisticated the human body is. And so what happens is people often experience blurry vision, tunnel vision, visual snow, like the static, the eye floaters, and they experience all these things, and there's no tiger, there's no lion, so why are you experiencing this? Well, there must be something wrong with your eyes. Now, I do have to say this, and you should obviously always do this, which is make sure to get everything ruled out by your doctor. Do not use these videos or any videos on the internet as a substitute for medical advice. Now, I'm assuming you've ruled everything out already, and the chances are you've gotten ruled it out multiple times, and that's why you're here. And so recognize that anxiety can create very, very strange, bizarre physical symptoms. Actually, it's so amazing if you think about it. Your eyes, whenever you're in this fight or flight response, you'll notice you're able to see your periphery more. And the reason why you can see your periphery more is because if a tiger came at you from the side, you'd be able to catch it. If you really think about it, how amazing and sophisticated is your body? But what's happening right now is that it's assuming there's a threat when there is none. And what's happening is it's doing this in inappropriate ways. So one of the things to really do is focus on the anxiety. If you can focus on the anxiety, all of this goes away, including the vision changes. Now that leads me to number 2, which is auditory changes, tinnitus. And it's the same principle. It's the idea that if there's a threat, you want to be able to hear it. You become very sensitive to any sort of small change or any small sound. What happens if there's a tiger behind a bush? You want to be able to hear every small thing. Now, if you notice that a lot of these responses, the fight or flight response is a little bit antiquated. It's more focused on when we were hunter-gatherers in the African savanna. But it doesn't really apply in 2022. You know, our stressors are different. Family stressors, personal stressors, whatever's going on in the world, whatever is going on politically, all these different things. So if you notice that a lot of our stressors are modern, but a lot of our responses are from the Stone Age or from predatory threats. So if you notice, our stress response, our fight or flight response was very useful 10,000 years ago. But in today's day and age, it's not very useful. But you will still experience the same symptoms, which are vision changes and auditory changes. Now that leads me to the third bizarre symptom, which is flu-like symptoms. Like feeling off, feeling sick, you may get aches and pains, and it's so easy to think that there's something physically wrong. And you're thinking, why can't I just overcome this illness or this flu or whatever it is? Like, why is this happening? Am I sick? And what you may do is you may actually be resting a lot. And you may be putting pressure on yourself of, okay, why am I not getting better? Why am I not getting better? Is there something wrong with my immune system? Is there something wrong with my body? Am I just sick, or am I just very frail? What's happening? Well, anxiety can create very flu-like symptoms. And again, this is why it's so important to get everything ruled out by your doctor. One of the great benefits of living in today's day and age is that we're really good at identifying what's wrong. And if there is something, how to address it quickly. Right? Especially if you're in an environment where healthcare is accessible, you're able to really identify what's happening very fast. And so if you've gotten everything ruled out, like I mentioned, just know that anxiety can create flu-like symptoms. Now, a lot of people try to treat it like the flu, but the problem is that if you just treat the symptoms, it doesn't really go away. And so if you want to know more about how to actually focus on the anxiety, I'll put a link down below to a book that I've written. It's a free book. It really explains how the recovery journey looks like. It's something that would have helped me when I was struggling with physical symptoms, and I think it'll really help you long-term overcome these symptoms once and for all. So the link is down below, definitely check it out. And so the fourth bizarre symptom is dizziness, okay? Again, how does anxiety create dizziness? And the fear about dizziness is that you may actually have the fear of falling or passing out. And that in itself can be really scary. And what I often find with people that really struggle with dizziness is that they often also struggle with panic attacks. So they tend to go hand in hand. At least if you've had panic attacks, you've probably experienced dizziness. And what happens as a consequence is that people stop going outside. Because what happens if you fall? What happens if you fall and nobody's there? Or what happens if you do fall when you're driving? Or what happens if you pass out? And so what happens is that people end up actually not leaving their house, or they'll start avoiding certain situations. Now here's the thing, anxiety also causes dizziness. Again, I can't stress this enough. This is assuming you've gotten everything ruled out by your doctor. Now, how does anxiety create dizziness? Well, with the fight or flight response, one of the things that the fight or flight response does is that it increases blood pressure. And so when it increases blood pressure, you have a lot more blood flow going to the brain. And what happens is that when you get that blood flow going to the brain, what happens is you get a dizzy feeling. But what's actually ironic about anxiety is that you're less likely to pass out. So if you're struggling with anxiety, between me and you, I'm actually more likely to pass out than you. And the reason why is because my blood pressure isn't high because, well, I'm not feeling the anxiety. I'm not feeling that fight or flight response. But if you are, you're actually less likely to pass out. It's really important to understand that passing out happens from blood pressure dropping. And the reason why you pass out is because when blood pressure drops, you get less blood flow going to the brain. And so what your body does to compensate is that it makes you fall so that you're parallel to the ground so you can get blood flow going to the brain. So this fear of dizziness, this fear of passing out, what happens is a lot of times when I ask people, hey, how many times have you passed out? They always say none. And I always say, why do you think you haven't passed out? And they say, well, I always catch myself before passing out. And the truth is that you are never going to pass out. But what we say is that that's actually an intrusive thought. You have a fear of passing out, you have a thought that you're gonna pass out, and you have symptoms that makes it feel like you're gonna pass out, but you never do. And then finally, number 5 is heart palpitations or heart anxiety, where you feel like your heart's gonna explode, it's gonna lead to a heart attack, you may even be getting heart flutters instead. And it's really easy to think, oh my God, my heart can't handle this. Why is it beating so hard even when I'm just sitting down? It's actually one of the most common symptoms I see. And rightfully so. What happens is that when you experience anxiety, when you're in this fight or flight response, you get a release of stress hormones. For simplicity, one of the most prevalent stress hormones is adrenaline. And so what happens is that when you have excess adrenaline in your body, you can really feel it in your heart. And what your heart does is that it burns off the adrenaline. And when you have excess adrenaline, your heart just beats faster. If you ever look at the movies where somebody's heart stops, they like inject them with epinephrine or adrenaline. And so the idea of that is to make the heart beat. And so just like that, when you're experiencing anxiety, you're experiencing more palpitations. But again, what happens is people start focusing on the palpitations and not the anxiety. But that doesn't fix it because the heart is just doing its job, which is it's feeling that there's excess adrenaline in the body and it's starting to burn it out. So again, full circle, really bringing this down is that these are some of the most common symptoms of anxiety, but it's also some of the most bizarre. And the main key here is to really understand that anxiety is not just something that's in your head. It's very physical because it's about survival. So I hope this video helps. If you really want to know more about how to overcome this, I'll put a link down below for mentorship, where me and my team guide people around the world overcome this, go back to living without having any physical symptoms ever again. Just going back to living, being carefree, not having this as a problem. So if you really want to know how this works and how recovery looks like, and you just want to streamline your recovery as quickly as possible, I'll put a link down below. When you hit the link, it's gonna break down a video really showing you how the mentorship works. And if you think you're a good fit, definitely have an application, and we'll have a call just to see if it's something that we can actually help you with. And if so, I'll take you underneath my wing and we'll overcome this together. So with that said, I'll see you in the next video.